Hello, everybody. Welcome to the session. If you all see us, please use the emoticon, use the emoji button at the bottom to send a thumbs up. Perfect, perfect. I can see a lot of thumbs up coming up. Great. We are so glad that all of you could join the session, and I have the five amazing panelists here with me who will be going ahead and sharing the next hour of time with all of you. And the whole idea of having this session on navigating your business during pandemic is that we can get businesses, we can have founders come together, we can have founders, even the audience come together, and all of us together can share learnings, can share things that we are trying that may be working, that may not be working. I mean, we will all figure this out only by sharing with each other. So the whole idea of this session is that we should be able to use the time to learn from each other's businesses and go back and apply them. Um, Coronavirus or COVID-19 has definitely brought up a lot of interesting agenda or interesting times for all of us, and not just for people. It's impacting every single aspect of our life, and when it comes to businesses, it's impacting them big time. Whether it's the biggest business of the world or it's the smallest guy who runs a kirana shop, every single person's business is impacted. And while the larger businesses definitely have a different kind of problems and they have more resources available to them, when it comes to smaller businesses, the challenges and the resources availability is very limited. So the whole idea and the core idea of doing this session was that we can bring businesses who are hustling through the time, who are figuring things out, and so that they can share what they are doing. So let me quickly go ahead and introduce the panel that I have today. So the five panelists that I have here with me are Pratibha Agarwal. She runs Anahata Yoga Zone in Hyderabad. It's a chain of yoga studios who focus on building community around health and fitness. Pratibha, you would like to say just hi?
Thank you so much, Piyush. Thank you for having me here, and a very warm good evening to everybody.
Great, awesome. The next panelist that we have is Mansi Shah Third. She runs a community space in Bangalore called Lahe Lahe. It's a beautiful space where a lot of lively events, a lot of community events happen, both around art, culture, and even education. And I have personally been a part of a lot of those events, so it's been a great privilege for me to have you here, Mansi.
Thank you so much, Piyush, for having me here. And hello, everybody.
Awesome. The next panelist we have is Mr. Raj Shekhar. Raj Shekhar runs Maven Consulting Services, which is into helping students fulfill their higher education dreams. They help students in getting admissions into universities abroad. Yes, Mr. Raj Shekhar.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Piyush, and look forward for a great 1 hour session with everyone here.
Awesome. And finally, we have Sushant Goyal, who is the co-founder of Third Wave Coffee, one of my favorite coffee chains in Bangalore. And I hear that they are also in Hyderabad and Pune. They are definitely great at roasting coffee and enabling people to have conversations. Sushant.
Thanks, Piyush. Looking forward to an engaging 1 hour and some really interesting questions from the audience.
Lovely, lovely. And lastly, I have Malini. Malini Gauri Shankar runs a travel company called F5 Escapes. It's a women travel company that focuses on not just helping people explore and discover India, but it also enables a lot of community activities, a lot of action around how women can transform themselves through travel. Malini, all yours. Malini, can you hear us? Okay, looks like there's a delay on Malini's end. Um, yeah, looks like there's a delay on Malini's end. I think we'll come back to that in a few seconds. And lastly, I'm Piyush Agarwal. I am the founder of 91 Growth Consulting. I work with a lot of startups and founders to help them figure out how they can make sure that they're using data, they're making the right decisions, and they're making the right experiments to keep growing their startup. So I get the privilege of talking to amazing founders like these on a regular basis and helping them on their game. So with that, without further delay, let's just get started with the session. I guess Malini will join us back in a few seconds once she has figured out her network. So we that should be fine. That shouldn't be okay. That should be okay. By the time she joins back, I just wanted to make sure that we have some ground rules on how this session can be engaging and interesting for everyone. Overall, we are all in an era where suddenly everything is online classes, online live streaming, and everything is the way to go. And obviously, that means that there's a lot of strain on our internet connections. So at any point of time, if any of our speakers are facing issues with internet connections, I have instructed them that they can turn off their video. So in case you can't see anybody's video, it's just because they are conserving bandwidth and making sure that they can still be part of the conversation. We will go through a list of questions through the panel, but at any point of time, based on the discussion, if you would like to ask a question, you can do that as well. If you click on the chat screen on the right hand side, you have two tabs. You have a general tab and a questions tab. So if you have any questions, either to the whole panel or to somebody specifically in the panel, you can mention the question there. And throughout the session, I'll try to pick some of the questions and pose it for the panelists. Mm-hmm. And lastly, while the conversations is going on, feel free to use the emoticons to let us know what you feel, what you are feeling at a certain point of time, if you agree to what the panelists are saying or what they are not saying, right? It's just a great way to keep it interactive. It's just a great way for all of us to keep seeing these hearts and likes on the screen and know that what we are talking is making sense and you are all with us, right? Awesome. So getting started, I think let's just take care of the biggest one and the most known question that would be expected. I mean, this situation that we are all in is something that we all couldn't have been prepared for, right? I see Malini joining back. Malini, can you hear us?
Yes, sorry.
No worries at all. So in case you do face further issues, feel free to turn off your video.
Yeah,
Great.
sure. Yeah.
Okay, so just kicking off the panel discussion now that we have everybody here. Basically, if we look at the current situation and say that this is something that anyone or any business could have been prepared for, it would be unbelievable, and it is, because this kind of crisis is not something that has come to businesses or anyone over the last course of so many years. I think when people start going back and look into the history, they go all the way back to World War II and to find some sort of relevance into the times. But that also means that it has had a major impact on all of us and all the businesses. If I have to really put it out for the panel to say that what does that mean? When we do those business 101 classes and we create those business plans and we put out those massive presentations of how this business will grow over the 5 years and 10 years, obviously a lot of the planning takes care of a lot of the contingencies as well. And how about a contingency like this? Do you think you could have ever planned better? Do you think that you could have done something differently to have been in a better position today? Let's start with Sushant.
So I think when people go back and talk about the fact that this is worse than World War II and worse than the 2008 financial crisis, I think people underestimate it slightly, right? Because I think in this case there's very little predictability on what's going to happen in the future, and I think for us as business owners, we try and model most things, right? Like you said, you try and do a 1-year plan, 5-year plan. And in this case, I think the biggest challenge is to model things out, right? What do cash flows look like for 6 months? What do they look like for a year? How many people can you have on your payroll? But that being said, I think there is some type of predictability on what's going to happen in terms of consumption changing, how people are going to consume. Like you said, right? People are moving more and more online. Do the way people work in the future, is it going to be different? Are offices going to exist? I think that's a perennial question that people are asking. something. In my industry specifically, I think the question that is being asked is, will people start consuming food in restaurants anymore? Right? Will they go out to coffee shops? Will they converse with people? And I think we're only humans, so I think there is going to be a little bit of that. But yeah, there is going to be a slight leaning towards people ordering in. There's also going to be a change in terms of consumption because the way people spend in terms of discretionary income will change, right? Are you only going to spend on essentials, or are you going to start spending on other things as well? So I think if I had to sort of summarize whether this is a situation that you can model out, I think it's very difficult. But that being said, I think there are some behavior predictions that you need to make about how consumers are going to consume your product and
Right.
model it. And that's what we have done at Third Wave.
Right, right. I just one point to add to what you just said. I think people are dying to go back to restaurants at this point of time because of lockdown. But let's move on to Mansi. Mansi, what do you think about that?
So just to add, can you hear me?
Yes.
So just to add, the fact that people are dying back to go to the restaurants, but there's also this slight risk that a lot of people are making, Dolona coffee at home right now. So I don't know how that is going to impact because it's just trending right now. Anyways, coming back to Lahe Lahe, obviously this was not prepared for. Contingency options never were about situation like this, and our industry, basically the art space or the um, cultural space that we have, it works. The main factor that works on is a positive vibe,
Mm-hmm.
and that cannot be replicated over the internet. So if you look at it, though we are doing a lot of online events right now, but what is really impacting is the fact that generally the space is built in a model where people actually find some way to get away from their gadgets or their phones. But right
Right.
now we're dependent on our phones and gadgets to actually be a part of the online events, and that's a difficulty, yes. But having said that, there is also a potential that we see because a lot of times, even before the lockdown, there were all over the world. There have been people who've been saying that why don't you open a Lahe Lahe here, or
Mm-hmm.
even around India. And the fact that we have the time and the energy to actually work on an online model as well, which might not only help us during the lockdown, but even for times to come. So we have an alternative space where the events, obviously on the physical space, will continue to happen after the lockdown, but at least there's also a scope for developing another model, and that is what we are getting into right now. Yes.
Great. So yeah, it couldn't have been predicted that the space like yours could have would close down for so long. But at the same time, there's no other way of looking out apart from looking out for alternatives. Moving on, Malini, can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, I can.
Great, awesome. So I think I'll take a little forward from there and say that okay, we discovered or we came to know about this thing called Corona sometime in December, right? When Wuhan, when it appeared in Wuhan, the crisis started breaking up, and it became real and this big of a problem for globally for most countries only about in March, right? So there was almost like a 3 month heads up that I think the world got that something like this may happen. Do you think that that really was taken up as a heads up, or do you think that when that happened, that actually was something that was looked upon by you and or any other businesses around you as something that will become a bigger thing or to what it has become today?
Okay, so to begin with, people not traveling is not something a travel company can predict. People
Of
not
course.
traveling at all. So that's the worst nightmare that a travel company can have. And yes, I agree that to some extent, this kind of a pandemic, no one can be prepared for. Because we humans give ourselves a little too much credit with our BCPs, but that's not how it works.
Mhm.
So, but in the future, probably the BCP based on figuring in a pandemic or a tsunami might help. So some scenarios like what Sushant said. That said, yes, our industry started our company started feeling the heat of it slightly, probably in February.
Hmm.
Even when it hit Kerala shores, I honestly, we did not think that it might become this big because last year was Nipah, right? Last year or
Hmm.
the year before was Nipah in Kerala, and Kerala, something hitting Kerala probably, and given Kerala's expertise in handling a pandemic, kind of made me feel okay, probably they'll contain it.
Right.
And Ebola has happened, SARS has happened. We hear about these things in the news, but this kind of a thing we probably did not predict. And for us, the business started kind of dwindling in end of February. Even February was a good month for us. First week of March was when we started feeling the heat of things. We even had one trip in the first week of March, and then it became completely dried up. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. So I guess I'll move to Rajshekhar. If you really have to, I mean, sort of follow up to what Malini was just adding, if you have to really call out the first signs of, when you started seeing the impact of, the coronavirus started coming in your business, when you started noticing that, this may be something that you need to do or take seriously for your business, when would that be like? And what was that?
Okay, so now since we are into the education abroad field where students apply almost 8 months ahead of the session starts in the universities abroad. So
Hmm.
everything was going on fine. Applications were sent in to universities across the globe. Students have got decisions as well. The next session starts in August of 2020. And even until mid March, things were looking good for us because
Hmm.
though the numbers on the COVID-19 cases increased, there was lockdown, the university dorms were shut, the university officials were asked to work from home. But the positive aspect to it was the universities were rolling out decisions. They were not saying that we are going to shut. They
Hmm.
are, in fact, even today, I have students who get admissions right into their inbox saying that congratulations, you've been secured a place starting your admissions in August of 2020. But then looking at the way the trends are moving,
Hmm.
uh, it was just a week back we started feeling the pinch of this because the university started rolling out emails that we will not be able to accommodate you for your semester courses beginning the August of 2020 for the simple reason the cases are increasing and the lockdowns are going to continue, and the students are given an option of either taking one semester online and then moving on campus either
Wow.
the next semester. That's the option. But what happened in turn, what was the worry of the applicants and the parents ideally here was uh, there were students who are in the final semester. They were working professionals who had already put down their papers, assuming that
Hmm.
they will fly in August 2020 to
Wow.
pursue their dreams abroad because they had a 3 months notice period, they had 2 months notice period, and since they had already offers in their hand, they were like, Rajshekhar, now we are in a fix. We really don't know how to take this forward, and it's just been a week, and things are really going haywire. One, the embassies got shut. That was the first notification we got through the official resources that the embassies are all shut and there will be no visa appointments. So
Got
the
it.
moment we analyzed that, we connected since we know a lot of university officials and from the embassies, we started coordinating with them. But then they were saying, Rajshekhar, this is really going to take a long time to bounce back. And the universities are also worried because if you look at what happened, one good thing for us was no international student from China, even their applications were not accepted in any of the countries. So the maximum next students were Indian students in most of the universities abroad. So our students got a lot of offers. They were very happy. Things were going very great. But then, since the lockdown, the COVID-19 cases increasing, The universities also survive on the fees that the international students bring in to the campus.
Right.
So they are also into a big loss. And nobody ever had expected that something like this will happen. And it became so difficult for us because it was just not making the students understand. There were parents also into the picture here who were worried of the
Right.
scenario, and there were educational loans sanctioned for the students from the banks, and they did not know how this whole process is going to go ahead. So we are all coordinating now with the universities, with the embassies, and we're trying to come out of the rut. But then it's only now that I think we all have to move in a digital way, and
While while you have been going through the list, I can already see every single person nodding because it's like every single day you are discovering a new horror in your business.
yes,
There's a new
yes,
development that's happening. There's something new that's happening for different places where people were not even familiar. People were not aware of how big this is going to be. And I don't personally, I don't think this is going to change. I don't think this is going to stop. I'll see that, we will see a lot of these developments continue to happen. So yeah, I mean, the gist that I'll take from yours is that it's so difficult to say when was the first time, but it feels like every single day there is a new development which makes it feel that, okay, this is bigger than what you thought about it yesterday.
yes.
Right. But you have given me a good leeway into the next question as well, and I'll just move on to Pratibha. So Pratibha, I think let's talk about some of the hard decisions that we as businesses have taken because of how the development has been over the last 1 month, right? Obviously, there are businesses which are doing great during these times of distress. There are specific businesses like educational tech is obviously doing well, live streaming is doing well, online event companies are doing well. But again, they make up a very small fraction. Most of the businesses that we are talking to and the ones that are here are more into physical spaces. So, what were the first hard decisions or the first impacts that you saw coming in the business that you had to take the moment all of this broke loose?
All right, Piyush. So, like everybody else mentioned, the uncertainty and the unpredictability of the situation was something which really hit us hard because, as all the businesses, we run on a certain model, but this was something which we did not have any contingency plan ready for this. So, I remember the
Mhm.
first week when we had to take a decision. The first decision was okay, we'll just close it for a week and then see how it goes because we need to take necessary precautions. So for 1 week, so the first 3, 4 days, when all of this started to build up heat, when we woke up and we smelled coffee, we had sanitizers in the studio. So anybody coming in sanitizers and then just do the classes and then get off with that. That lasted only for 2, 3 days.
I think we lost your voice, Pratibha.
Can you hear me
Yeah,
now?
yeah, it's
Yeah.
better
So
now.
it just started to scale, every day it would just scale up.
Uh,
So after 2, 3 days of
yeah, it's coming back. Go ahead, go ahead.
Okay. So after 2, 3 days of the sanitization thing, we had to take the decision that we know we had to close it. And then
Right.
as soon as we closed it, immediately after 2 days, we started getting students' messages and calls that we are so used to doing a physical workout. It's like a part of our day we are not doing. So now what
Mhm.
do we do? Something needs to be done. And I would say, in a way, it was kind of a blessing to some part, I would say, because this was something which we had been sort of pushing it since a
So
long
I
time.
will
So a
I
lot
will
of
pause you there because I know what you're getting onto, and I would like that to come back a little later.
okay.
But I think I remember one conversation that I had with you during the earlier stages where you're thinking, yes, the studios are closed for now, but I think I want to open them up in another week. I can't have my studios closed for more than a week. That's not how a business is run. So there was definitely, I think,
Exactly.
among most of us businesses, there was some level of denial as well that this is going to be as big as it has become today, right?
Right, and we being the
Um,
yoga people, we are very optimistic, Piyush. So we were very optimistic about things, and we did not really sort of look into the scale at which it would grow. And it was like, as I said, okay, 1 week we'll just take a few precautions, and then we will get back to it, and we'll do it. But then the very
Great,
next second day, third day, we started realizing that it is much bigger than we are actually thinking. It is much bigger and
absolutely.
much larger.
Absolutely. Malini, I think I'll get to you on this. I mean, I know that there were quite a few decisions that you had to take. What were the those hard decisions, those difficult first course of actions that F5 had to take when and obviously travel as an industry got impacted the first with
Yeah,
all
yeah,
the restrictions coming in place and people not willing to travel with Corona going around. So what was your
yeah.
first course of action?
Yeah, thanks, Piyush. So yes, our this is the time when we run our mountain tours.
Hmm.
So and we specialize on the Northeast. We run tours to most of the states in the Northeast. One of them was Arunachal. The first trip to get impacted was a trip to Arunachal Pradesh, and people we had put it out back in November. The trip was supposed to have happened in last week of March, and once Corona hit Indian shores in Kerala, right?
Hmm.
So people started asking, okay, and China was going through the pandemic, and people started asking, Arunachal is closer to China, will that impact and all that? And then we said, see, Arunachal didn't get impacted. Kerala was the first one to come in.
Hmm.
So, that's where it hit. So, at that point, we were able to give those answers. But, and eventually, Arunachal and many of the northeastern states closed their borders and locked themselves out even before the rest of the country responded,
Right.
right? So we didn't kind of wait for that. We kind of knew that it was getting there. So first week of March, we kind of closed that trip, and we had to start processing refunds. That was the first very difficult decision that we had to make. We offered a full refund even before our customers started panicking and asking for it. That way, a lot of trust got built into the brand.
Right.
We also said, okay, we'll offer you. There were some trips that were running full. There was a second trip that was already full by February, almost. So
Hmm.
we said, we'll give you a full refund. Otherwise, if you choose to, park your money with us in these strange times, you can later get 110% of it. You can claim 110% of whatever money
Interesting.
you have. We said that, because of which a lot of people came back and said, yeah, that's so good. Probably we'll definitely want to travel with you after this. That kind of paid off, that proactive decision. The second one was giving up all the extra costs, all frills.
Hmm.
Uh, Even office is a frill for us. We have been a remote working team for 7 years. We have My co-founder lives in Bhimtal, Himalayas, and one of my teammates works from Haryana. So we are all over the place, and but that way it has not been an impact. But talking to all the people individually and collectively as a team, keeping it going and giving up on office space, which was very hard for us. That's where it's women travel, right? So a lot of women want to come see us, trust us, see us in blood and flesh before they trust us. That is one of the
Right.
reasons why we kept that space. So giving that up was very hard.
So as of now, if I have to just summarize that, as of now, as a business, you have made refunds for all customers or given them deferrals, and you have also given up your office space, which is a
Yeah.
physical space, because it was additional cost, right, towards the
Yes.
business. So these are
Yes.
sort of expense cutbacks that has happened. And
Yes.
yeah, I mean, giving up office space cannot be easy for any business. I just want to make sure that how did you ensure that this was being looked upon as a business decision and not something that impacts you or anybody in the team personally? Because I know that all of us, when we start a business and we run, it's a matter of passion for us,
Yeah.
and a physical space becomes part of that passion, right? So
Yeah.
how did you make sure that it is purely looked upon as a business decision for survival and not anything else?
None of these were taken by me. Every single decision is democratic in F5, where we are a small team.
Mhm.
The core team is about 5 people, and we have about 20 tour leads. But most of the decisions are democratic, and especially in times like these, it's very important to keep employees engaged and make them
Okay.
feel that they are being a part of something, that's happening. Keeping them in the dark is not going to help. So they themselves came back, and in fact, our people came and told us, would you be able to pay the salaries? It's okay, we'll be around, don't worry. I was, it has been amazing that way, because we have been proactive. Our people have also been proactive, and our vendors also. We've been talking to them, and some, we have managed to give the full refunds even before we could recover all the money from the vendors, or we have given the full refund or promised to give, right? So that way there is a lot of trust that has been built, and we are giving a little bit of time to our vendors to
Interesting.
return the money. So that way it has been fairly democratic, and everyone, it's been fairly transparent as well. That has worked for our as a business also. It builds a lot of credibility for the brand.
Yeah. So there are quite a few nuggets, I would say, that you that of or things that you have tried that are interesting, and I would just want to repeat that for everybody in the audience here. So giving up expenses and making it a business decision and making sure that you can looking at things that can be cut down and will not impact your business, and also coming up with creative ways to make sure that you can keep money in the bank. So your deferral option of having 110% return, which is more than what most banks offer today, I think immediately was something that a lot of people opted for. So I think these are some interesting experiments that you ran, and I'm glad that you guys are a remote working team already and such a close knit team. I think I'll move on to Sushant on the same question, because clearly FNB is a different ball game altogether. And with the restaurants being closed and people having no place to come down, like what were some of these hard decisions that you as a team had to make, you and your founders?
Yeah, so I think for us, we run over 15 spaces around the country. These are physical cafes, and we were in the midst of acquiring another 15, 20 spaces that we were in the middle of negotiating. So I think the first thing was to speak with our landlord partners and really make them understand that this is a force majeure situation, because I think most agreements don't cover what you call a force majeure. So I think really explaining to landlords that it's best for them to understand that there'll be either a waiver of rent, or there will be some type of a reduced rental for the period of lockdown and even post the lockdown period, right? Because we don't expect things to return to normalcy for a couple of months. So I think the first thing that we heard from most landlords was, we're in it with you. This is great because I think in the future, if we are able to ensure business continuity for both parties, it benefits us, right? So
Mhm.
I think renegotiating rentals was the first priority. We have over 200 people in our team. And I think for us, philosophically, principally, we wanted to ensure that there were no layoffs in the company. So just explaining to people, what did the salary cut mean? If you're getting a deferred salary, when does that salary get paid out? Are there any extenuating circumstances that people have, such as EMIs or loans that they need to pay out, and therefore the business will support you? But I totally agree with Malini. I think over communication in this particular time was very important. So I think those were the two major levers that we looked at, and we had to make a decision around. And customers, of course, are extremely supportive and understand. And I think for us, we were just finding new ways to engage with our community. So I think one of the things that we did was, we started a Spotify playlist, and we got the customers hearing the music they would hear at cafes, just to remember us, right? Because I think it's such a long lockdown period that you want
Wow.
customers to remember you.
Yeah.
But on the cost cutting front, I think these were the two major levers, and we have tried our best to work around those two levers.
Interesting, interesting. And yeah, I mean, I think one thing that you mentioned is very important, is because you have 200 employees and you have employees of all kinds, right? You have a cleaner, you have somebody who just works in the kitchen, to all the way to a higher and to top end management professional. And for a lot of them, all of these things like salary cuts is like something that they would not be able to understand what does it mean, right? Or actually salary cut is still easier one, but if you are furloughing somebody, or if you are giving options or stock options that some companies are offering, like what do those means? Do you see what has been the initial reaction from the team overall? Like, had they all been very supportive, or you have had to work harder to make sure that they understand what it means and how to go about it?
I think without stating too much and getting into
Mhm.
specific, for us, I think people have to believe in your company and the story,
Mhm.
and and they will support you no matter what, right? There
Right.
is there is at some level in this kind of a situation, and this is around the world, right? When you hear companies like Macy's in the US furloughing all of their teams,
Right.
it's an extraordinary situation, right? Even companies with very deep pockets are furloughing people. So I think
Mhm.
if you can make people believe that they're invested in the long run of the business, you'll find a way for you to support them in the long run with some type of short-term cutbacks, right? So
Right.
I think the initial reaction for us has been great, but of course there is inevitability in terms of some type of collateral damage when it comes to people leaving you or moving on, right?
Right, right, absolutely. Yeah, and keeping them motivated. I think the Spotify playlist is, I think somebody in the audience also said, is a great idea. And yeah, you have customers who love to hang around the whole day, so they would definitely know the playlist by heart by now. I'll just want to call out one thing that you mentioned, which is really important, and I guess all the businesses are already thinking or doing it, is talking to your landlords, right? Talking to people who you have to pay and figuring out ways that you can make it work for both of you, because this is a situation not just for the business but also for the landlord. So the only way to get out of this is by doing it together. So that's a great tip. I'd like to move on to Pratibha from here and just talk about a little bit more about the early decisions that you had to take to sort of keep the team motivated. A lot of the what Malini and Sushant mentioned was talking to the team, making sure they understand the situation. What were the first course of action that you had to take for your team? Because you do have a team of instructors and a team of studio managers and everyone who are involved on the daily running of the business, right?
Right. So as soon as we came to know that this is going to last and it's not something which is going to be there only for a few days or maybe a week or two, we had to get the team stay motivated. That yes, I mean,
Mhm.
even if it continues, we are going to be doing something. And that is when we started reaching out to our students, to our audiences, and we started giving Facebook live sessions and Insta live sessions. So in the beginning, the
Mhm.
instructors, like my team, they were not very they were not completely into it, that they did not buy it that it's going to work, because I mean, any kind of a physical exercise, the teacher needs to be there physically to see that everything is going on right. But one or two
Mhm.
sessions, and then they were totally convinced that yes, this is going. And then we started getting the feedbacks from the students and from our participants, and then they also got motivated. And now what is really interesting with us is that each one of us are getting to learn from each one of us. So earlier what would happen was individual instructors would be taking a class somewhere, and we would not get to participate in their classes. So now what happens is one teacher is taking it, and since we are online, all the other teachers also get to learn from each other. So I
Right.
feel this has been a very good community building, and it's really helping the team spirit a lot, because we are learning a lot from each other, which was not happening as much earlier.
Got it.
So that is really getting the team motivated, and they're really enjoying this part at least.
Got it. Got it. Awesome. That's really great to know. So the team is learning from each other. You have created a space where they can use this time to build upon and ensure that they can reskill or upskill themselves further. So that's great.
Exactly.
Rajshekhar, I think
Yeah.
I'll take an audience question for you. This question is from Babu, and he's asking, what would you suggest being a small startup, whether to invest more, that is, work hard now, or to cut down resources? I think there's always a give and take when it comes to these things, whether you should be investing more or whether you should be just cutting back or whether you should be doing both, right? If you have to take that one, what would your response be?
Okay, it's in a situation of this kind, it looks a little tricky because now if you have to invest more, I will have to make sure that for the next 3 months, 6 months, until the economy is back and people start thinking on how to rework around the situation, investing more would be very, very difficult.
Hmm.
But on the contrary, if I have to work hard, I will look for innovative ways that sitting from the comfort of my house, I can talk to people and explain them the scenario where now, like, if you look at my advertising policy at the moment, we have never done something digitally. But the moment the crisis started up, we thought we cannot invest more into this, but then we'll have to find an alternate way to make sure that people keep up to date, they get in touch with us, they speak to us. So we are tagging a line now saying that don't cancel your plans, but change your plans. So this
Okay.
is the tagline what we are using. So we are asking students to buy time. We are reinventing ourselves how to go digitally, counseling students through Skype, video, talking to parents. So we are not investing more here, honestly speaking,
Mhm.
because one, like everybody spoke about the overheads, the rents,
Mhm.
paying salaries, because I have a team member of about 18 people in my team for three offices, four offices, that is Chennai, two in Bangalore, one in Belgaum. So we will have to run the overheads. They also have families. We have to pay salaries. So if I'm going to invest more into this, it's really going to be difficult for me to keep my people, happy about it. So
Got it.
looking at that, we are working hard. We are reinventing things on how we can bounce back and what period we might require to things for the dust to settle down and things to wake up. So in our industry, probably investing more wouldn't make sense. Yeah, investing in what way? Yeah, we may have to buy subscriptions for these conference calls, video calls, because they are not free anymore. So minor investments are happening, but not some major investments.
Got
So
it.
we are working hard on reinventing things.
I would like to just add something to what you just said. I think, yes, investment in terms of pure money may be something that is difficult, but I think for small startups, even the more important resource is time, I think. And that, from what you are saying, is something that you are investing, right? You and your team
Yes,
is investing a lot of time into developing new solutions and figuring out
yes,
new ways
yes,
of
very
connecting.
much.
So
Yes,
even
yes.
that sort of, I think, working hard, I won't say, but yeah, definitely working smarter and investing the time in the right ways to experiment would be a great way to go about it. And which basically brings me to, what are these innovative solutions that we are all trying, right? So I think I'll let Malini go ahead and say that. I mean, what are these new innovative things that you and your team is investing in? Are you investing time? Are you investing money? Are you investing ideas? Like what's happening?
Okay, so we are definitely investing a lot of time and ideas into it. Money, not yet.
Hmm.
We have to conserve cash. That is one thing that I'm totally about. And we are more of a community driven than a tech driven company. We are a typical small business tour operator. So one thing that we immediately started doing is engaging with our community on a weekly basis. We do something called a heart to heart. In the initial scenarios of the pandemic, when there was a lot of uncertainty and denial, it was that weekly session was all about getting people together and talk heart to heart. And now it has kind of changed shape. Now that this pandemic has become a new normal, it has become more about talent showcase. We are trying out new things, we are experimenting, and we are also doing immediately after the lockdown. One thing that we started doing was disseminating information for stranded travelers.
Okay.
Basically, we have a captive audience and there is no chance of revenue with the current set of scenarios. Last year, we did kind of look at multiple revenue models. We, in fact, diversified. We were only into domestic travel. We got into inbound revenues almost 10. From zero, we went up to 10% of our revenues started coming from inbound. And we also started doing workshops, online workshops, travel safety, and all of that. But in fact, initially we were also thinking we'll also take our workshops online. In fact, even before the lockdown, even before many businesses started going online, we started thinking because we saw the impact coming early March.
Hmm.
But one thing was we were doing a lot of travel safety and those kind of workshops, and we definitely felt that it would be kind of insensitive to be talking about travel, teaching how to travel, and all of that at this point.
Yeah.
When travel is kind of a, when you say go travel, then it is a kind of we would be perceived as insensitive. So we consciously did not do that. But right now, what we are doing is we are looking at community engagement, and we are definitely looking to bring up a few webinars and workshops, which is work in progress. But we'll see. We'll wait and watch at this point. That is the
Which may not be travel specific, but
yeah. It
maybe
will
more
be
specific to your
oh,
community
yes,
and
yes.
what will help your customers.
Right. Yeah.
Great, great.
We
Yeah,
have a
I think that's a
target audience.
yeah, that's an
So
interesting way of looking at things. I think a lot of times as businesses, we try to restrict ourselves to what we are already offering or what we are used to offering. We don't really look at our audiences and try to understand, okay, at this time, knowing the situation, how can I make sure that I have something to offer that my audience is looking for? It may not lead to money immediately. It may not
yeah,
lead to new businesses or new revenue sources or new ideas as well. But it is if it is helping your community or your or customers, you will still be creating a better brand experience for your
yes,
company, right?
yeah, yeah.
Um, Great, Pratibha. I think this is where you were going with earlier. What's new? What has changed? What are the new things you and your team are trying now?
Moving the whole yoga from the physical studio lessons to digital. And as I was mentioning, it was the need of the hour because a lot of students at that point of time they had started working from home. And since they were working from home, at the end of the day, they were having a lot of issues with the neck and the back, which they would find a relief when they would do yoga. So they started to reach out to us saying that we really need to do something and we really need some classes, and that's how we started going digital, and it has worked in our favor. A lot of the students they are taking the classes online, and it's working for us. I mean, of course the physical touch is not there, that physical relationship is not there, but then as the situation demands, it's working. And what is very interesting is like audiences and people whom we did not reach out earlier, say, I mean, who were outside Hyderabad. So now, like, it's almost pan India, global, because all our students who had shifted out from Hyderabad, who were like, there are students in California, Texas, they are also taking our classes. We are restreaming the classes, providing some recordings to the classes and all. So a lot of reinventing, as Mr. Rachekar said, a lot of reinventing has been done. And so it's been very interesting, and also these things were something which we were not, we were pushing it. So a lot of our students who were with
Mhm.
us and then who moved out of Hyderabad, they were reaching out to us and saying, why don't you give us classes on Skype? Why don't you do one-on-one classes? But we were always pushing it out because it was not really a need or a necessity. But then, yeah, this is what we are doing, and so that's how it is. And we look into,
Interesting,
and it's very
interesting.
interesting because even after things settle down, we are looking forward to continuing this process to the students who are not physically present in Hyderabad. So this is something which has opened new channels for us. Because we've experimented it, because we had to do it, and we found that it's worked in our favor. So we're going to continue with this
Got it.
hopefully.
And has the transition been easy, or it's taken a lot of work to move from a physical to an online
Yeah, so
kind of
any
a model?
process to bring it in place, I mean, of course, technical side of it, and also the mentality. So the instructors in the beginning, they were
Mhm.
not ready because they've not done something like this. So a lot of meetings with them, a lot of convincing them that yes, this is going to work. They were not very comfortable to be thrown in front of a larger audience and all of that. But I think it has been a good journey for all of us. And now I can see the confidence level and everything has increased. So the whole personality kind of has changed according to the situation. So it's very interesting how us as humans, we adapt to the situation. So there was an initial
Yeah.
resistance, and then slowly the adaptability started coming in, which was a very good insight for me to see.
Yeah, it's usually said until we are pushed into something, we wouldn't ever take it up. I guess that's true. Mansi, I know that Lahe Lahe has also been taking a lot of sessions online, and they have been experimenting online as well. How has that experience been for both your community and you and your team?
So to be totally honest, when we announced the cancellation of the events for almost a week, we all just rested because we have some 40 plus events happening every week that happens. So all of us are overworked, and we just use this time off to just rest. So it all started after a week. Uh, a lot of community members, especially we have two very strong communities of poetry and music jam, where they really started missing us. And especially when people are used to meeting people and jamming with them every week, just cutting that off, it also adds to a lot of other mental health issues which is
Right.
difficult to address. So that is why we realize that we need to really keep the community engaged right now, not only from our branding platform, but more so from the fact that now is a time when all of us need each other as a community. And that's the reason why we decided to start these two community events, poetry as well as music jam, the first. And obviously in this times of crisis, it is very difficult to expect people to pay up,
Hmm.
because a lot of people are facing either pay cuts, or they're facing, even maybe there might be job losses in the future as well. So everybody wants to contain the money, or retain the money that they have. And something like a music jam or a poetry meet might not be amongst the essentials that people cannot avoid spending on right now. So
Right.
we decided to keep it as a pay as you like model. So if people have the bandwidth to pay, they can pay. If they don't have the bandwidth, it's totally okay. We are, yeah, struggling with the salaries, but like for now, the pay as you like model will try, and I'm sure it's things will get better, because we are also looking at alternate streams where so this is for the communities which we've
Right.
already engaged with since the last few years, but something that we want to keep, maybe not at the same level of pricing which we keep it at Lahe Lahe, but a minimum amount of pricing are the other events which other artists and facilitators do at Lahe Lahe. So that
Right.
is a call which we are taking jointly. We are reaching out to at least those facilitators whom we feel that the online model can work. Like for some activities like theater, or some activities like actual pottery workshops or painting workshops, it needs to be necessary that they need to be physically at the event. But there are some sessions like storytelling sessions, or listening circles, or dance workshops, which are still possible to a certain extent online as well. But having
Right.
said that, we are facing challenges, because it is difficult to for these workshops to actually have a revenue driving business at this point of time, because it is
Hmm.
not a necessity, it's more of a luxury. But having said that, we're also looking at it in confidence with the partners, the artists who come here, whether if it is okay with them to minimizing the ticket price for now, but for a future next option, like how rightly Pratibha mentioned, that this is a platform which we've been pushed into now. So even after the lockdown ends, when we actually start having physical events, then we can also continue to do the online events besides the physical events that we have. So we're trying to motivate or encourage everybody to join in, more so from a futuristic way as well. But so that's how we're trying to do right now.
Hmm.
And also
Got it.
another thing that we're trying is, so there are some things which because of the lifestyle change that we've had till now,
Hmm.
we've realized that we haven't given that much importance to maybe something like gardening workshops, where you can grow your own of greens at home. So things like that, sharing circles where a lot of people are really having it's finding it very difficult to talk to people. Like, obviously there are some families who are together, there are some people who are staying independently, so they're
Right.
really in need of people whom they can reach out to. So we're we're trying to develop those kind of events as well. So we're looking also as alternate events which may not have made so much sense before the lockdown, but they make a lot of sense right now. So
Amazing. I'm sure the people who are listening would already be amazed of how many kinds of events does Lahe Lahe does, because in just the few options you were like, we only are doing few events online, you have listed out so many different kinds which maybe nobody is imagining. So what is interesting in this whole panel that I'm noticing is that right from Malini hosting quizzes, Pratibha hosting classes online, Rajshekhar doing one-on-one counseling online, you hosting gardening and sharing circles online. I think every single business is trying to figure out how they can, with online being the way to go right now, how they can serve their audience something that the audience would like to get, and also something that will maybe become part of your future offerings, as you move forward. So Shant, I don't know if you should also be considering looking at offering coffee making classes and brewing, and get a brewmaster on and do a master class
yeah.
and all that stuff. I don't know if you're already thinking of those lines, but looks like everything is happening online. So yes, your deliveries are online, but can we also get a coffee brewmaster and teach us how to roast those beans?
Oh, so 100%. So I think we're doing a lot of that already. So I think one of the things that we started doing very early on during the lockdown was getting a
Mhm.
lot of our baristas teaching people how to brew coffee at home,
Oh,
using, for example, just a chunni, right? So using beans and using a chunni, a very simple method you can use in your kitchen. And then we had a session with one of my other co-founders where we spoke a little bit about nuances of coffee, right? Coffee is a very
mhm.
sort of rich subject. You can talk about it. So there's definitely, I mean, other than teaching people to eat through the computer or drink coffee through the computer, you can do a lot, right?
Yeah.
So we're definitely doing that. And I think we're definitely going to look at different products that will get released in the coming few months, such that people can consume, third wave at home as well. So I think that's some of the things that we're spending time on.
I'll definitely be looking forward to that. So that's great. So clearly, I mean, just from five businesses, we can see that how online can become part of your strategy. How there are different things that you can think of to offer. I even came across somebody who was who is a fashion designer and who's selling her designs and clothes via this live sessions. She's just showing off her designs, taking orders, and saying, "I'll deliver once the lockdown is done." So people are being creative, people are doing a lot of different things and trying to leverage this as a great channel. Social commerce was always coming up, but it's like come big time now. But that brings me to another thing that even I think Malini mentioned, and to some extent Mansi also mentioned with the idea of the mental health part, right? How has this impacted your marketing? How are you making sure that we have sensitive messaging? What are the do's and don'ts if you have to list out when you're marketing to these customers of yours? Sushant, this was for you. Sorry.
Sorry. So I think for us, marketing and particularly advertising during these particular times
Hmm.
was a complete no-no. And I think one of the conscious decisions we took was, not to run an April Fool's joke. While a lot of brands chose that, let's make the mood a little lighter, the decision that we said is let's not do something around advertising or talking about April Fools, right? I
Right.
think one of the things that we have focused on really, and this has been touched upon by the different panelists, has been just community engagement, right? I think people need to remember your brand once the lockdown ends and after. So I spoke about the playlist that we did with Spotify, and I think more than advertisement. And some businesses need it, right? So I don't think it's I think it's scenario to scenario. Some businesses definitely need to continue advertising because you do need those cash flows coming in. You do need that revenue. But
Hmm.
for us, I think the choice we made was definitely in the very early days was around community engagement more than anything else. I think in the last week or 2 weeks, we have moved more towards advertising a few of the products as we opened up for deliveries.
Hmm.
Because as people are mentioning in the audience, I think revenue is very very important, right? You
Right.
do you do need to pay salaries. People do need to feed their families. I mean, that's the realistic truth, right? So I think it's scenario to scenario. I don't think advertising is necessarily a wrong thing, but at least for businesses, just engaging with your community, getting them to talk online on social media is very important during these times.
Right. I think you nailed it when you said advertising is not a bad thing. You need to be aware of what you're trying to say and how you're trying to use it. I think that is key. And what Sushant mentioned regarding the revenue and the trust factor and the conversations in the chat. Please drop in your questions on the questions tab if you are looking at it. Some of our panelists are responding to questions there as well, and keep the conversations going. Malini, I think the same question to you. Yeah, how is advertising, how is marketing changed with
Yeah.
the situation?
So, one jugaad that we did in FI was, of course, advertising we stopped. Definitely not travel. We are not talking about travel. In fact, our tagline is just go travel. And right now, if you look at it, it says the go travel is struck out, and we say stay, just stay. Is
Mhm.
uh, is one thing that we are doing, and the jugaad that we did was one of the tools. We use a lot of SaaS tools on a monthly basis as a small business, and one of them proactively offered credit. Okay, and
Mhm.
what we did was we took that email, sent that to all the SaaS companies, that we whose tools we purchased, and we said, see, this company has done this. Will you be, see, we are a travel company and we are really hit. Would you be willing to give us any credit? Can you extend a
Mhm.
3 months credit? You won't believe, everyone extended 3 months credit. We have conserved a lot of cash through that.
Wow.
And
Okay.
we did this before lockdown. Again, we
Yeah, so
were,
basically what you're saying is your SaaS companies like your MailChimp and your
yes,
Salesforce, your CRM
yes,
softwares, all those
yes,
companies are letting go of X number of months of revenue
yes,
so that
yes.
they can keep the customers.
Yeah, and in
Great.
fact, some of them have told, okay, we are extending you this month of some of the companies where I know the people, or where I know somebody in the company and all that. I am
Mhm.
personally calling, reaching out and talking to them, negotiating and all of that. And they do tell us, see, we really want to work with you and all that. So we'll see, we'll give you this much credit. If things go, further downward, we'll even further extend the credit.
Okay,
We'll take
lovely.
that decision then. So we are trying to make a win-win for everyone involved. So that is one thing where we have kind of conserved a lot of cash. And another kind of messaging that we are doing right now is we are doing series that kind of appeal to people's sensibilities at this point. For
Hmm.
example, we did a funny series on share the work
Okay.
when people were just about beginning to see the effects of the lockdown, where, and our audience is women, right, a lot of
Hmm.
working women, and they were quite impacted when they, when the entire family is home, and they had to, take care of work and family now. So that series led to a lot of engagement, and now we are coming up with one more series on we are working on another series. So this is some new messaging that we are trying out to keep the
Got
engagement going.
Got it. That's lovely. I think one takeaway that we should take from a small business from this session definitely is that if you have to pay for anything as a business, try to see if you can avoid that cost or expense completely. Be open to talking to your landlords. Be open to talking to your vendors. Be open to talking to your software providers and everything, because everyone is in this together and they will understand where you're coming from. I don't think we should hold ourselves back at all in that terms. And yeah, I mean, I think the series sound amazing, Malini, and we look forward to the next one as well. Going on the marketing track a little more, I think there's a. Oh, I just noticed, by the way, that one thing that Rajiv has shared is that how he and his team has used to use the time right now, the lockdown, to create a film for ID, where they have gone ahead and shot the films in different locations, all in their own houses, using Zoom and WhatsApp, and made the film. He has even shared the link on the chat, so if anybody's interested, they can see it. So yeah, I mean, looks like everybody is being creative. Everybody is trying to use the time in a way where we can make the most of what we have. And jugaad was a word used very well earlier. That jugaad is something that we'll have to do with. So a lot of people, a lot of resources are available. If you look in your friend circle, you will find designers, coders who are now having more time than what they did earlier. So if you have an idea, you will find somebody who will be ready to help you work on it, when earlier they were not. Right? We'll take, yeah, Malini.
Just to add, the one company that proactively gave us the credit was Zapier Automation, and this is where the trusting, and I would definitely trust them going forward, even if they
Okay.
get a little more expensive than other software.
So
So
proactivity builds trust. I think that's the key.
that
So
is
if you
something
are
that
we are being open and direct and thinking of our customers first before they come to us, I think they will be more open to doing business with us. Great. We'll take one audience question. This from Tanya. Tanya asks how sensitive businesses are on digital platforms these days. Do you want to take a stab at that, Malini?
Uh, I am seeing, I've been going online just to see how businesses are responding. Overall, there is some level of sensitivity, but I wouldn't generalize that. There are, of course, I observe my industry also, there are still companies that are promoting, travel and things like that. So that kind of gives us the sense that, so probably we should do something different. You know,
Got it.
you can't expect all businesses to be sensitive at these times. And
Yeah.
whoever emerges to be sensitive at these times would also have an upper hand post this lockdown, is something that I feel. I strongly feel.
What about in the education space, Rajshekar? Do you see businesses are being sensitive with the situation when it comes to marketing and talking and branding out there?
Yes, they are getting sensitive, and I think everybody needs to be sensitive on such a serious issue, because if we are not going to get sensitive now,
Hmm.
this will have a negative repercussion in the long term. Like, I'll give you an example here. I have a student who's worked in the IT industry for 6 years,
Hmm.
and he's got an admission into one of the top notch US B schools for his MBA with 100% scholarship, complete funding.
Okay.
And he also has an admit from one of the IIMs in India. And he called me a couple of days back and he said, Rajshekar, with this entire scene going around, do you think it's worth the risk? Because he's married, he's got a small kid as well.
Hmm.
He says, Rashika, do you think that is it worth risking everything and going ahead with my study abroad plans when I have an admit from IIM here in India? I was in a fix because, honestly speaking, people come to us when it is education abroad. I'll be very upfront and honest. It's a backdoor entry for jobs in these countries. It's
Hmm.
simply put, it's
Hmm.
backdoor entry for jobs in these countries. So 6 long years he's worked in India, he's settled well, he's earning well, and he's risking everything at this given point of time and going ahead, taking a sabbatical on his career, going for
Hmm.
further studies. That means he's looking for more in life.
Hmm.
But looking at the current scenario, the layoffs happening in the US, the projects going off, I have my own students who went to the US 5 years back, have been just laid off. And
Hmm.
they are calling me and saying, Rajshekar, what's the way out now? I won't apply for a PhD because my
Hmm.
H1B is gone, and things like that. So I said, look, gentlemen, if you have an admit from an IIM here in India, and you have a family back here, the situation to bounce back will take another 2 years.
Right.
So when we talk about sensitivity here, I should as a counselor be extremely cautious in guiding him in a very sensitive way. A
Yeah.
baby at home, wife to take care of, living his cushioned job and going, and then after 2 years, because we don't know how long the economy will take to rebound
Right.
or come back on track. I was very straightforward. I told him, hold on. if you can finish your degree here in India, and later on, if you can look for postgraduate diploma programs or a direct immigration in any of the countries based on your master's degree in IM here or your work experience of 6 years, there are a lot of countries like Canada and Australia which give you express entry immigration. You qualify for that. I think that would be a wiser route. Though you have completely funded program, but still you have a family to look after. And if there's no job, it's going to be extremely difficult for you to bounce back. And that will also lead to a lot of mental trauma. Psychologically, the family will face a lot of things. So sensitivity is very important. So whatever roles we are in, whatever position we are in, I think we'll have to analyze the situation
Yeah.
in every angle and should be able to guide in a more sensitive way to the people around us.
So just
And that's when
because
I think,
Yeah, so just because the businesses are low, the revenues are low, doesn't mean that you become insensitive. Even though
no,
you are
that's
in
not
a study abroad company and this was like losing a client, it's
yes,
better to recommend and show them the right route and be sensitive
true.
about the situation and show
Yes,
and
yes,
think about the long term of everyone, not just your own short term goals. I think that's a great message
correct.
to have. I'll take another question from the audience. Sushant, this one is from you. This for you. This is from Rajiv. If social distancing is here to stay till 2022, then how will F&B and entertainment and retail adjust to this new normal? We'll come to entertainment later, but even if you just take F&B and retail, like how do you think what's the new normal if it's here to
Sure.
stay in
So
2022?
I think I definitely think social distancing is here to stay until we have a vaccine for COVID-19. I think there is a very clear indication that people
Mhm.
will have that fear factor, not for themselves but for family members, for other people,
Mhm.
till the virus is there, right? And there is no particular vaccine. I think even before we went into the lockdown, for the time that we were operational, we started seeing customers requesting that at our cafes we started having distance between tables, right? Just a fundamental
Right.
request from them. And we exercised that, and I think customers immediately adopted and were comfortable, coming back, right? And you see this at supermarkets today as well, right? That people are walking in sets of 5 and 10, and outside there is a line. You have a particular set of distance between customers. So I think from an F&B standpoint, there is definitely going to be that type of social distancing that we'll have to practice within stores.
Mhm.
I think there's going to be a tremendous skew towards delivery, right? I think people are going to start consuming a lot more at home, and I spoke about this earlier. If you look at retail businesses, I mean, the likes of Amazon are going to definitely take precedence. People are going to start ordering a lot online.
Mhm.
I don't think people are going to stop wearing clothes or stop using gadgets, although there might be a consumption change just because people might lose jobs or might have reduced pay structures, right?
Right.
But I think, for example, if you look at malls, there's going to be a tremendous, and this is just a prediction, and and this is how we are planning for our business. But there's definitely going to be a decrease in terms of how people go to malls, right? And shop for apparel, for electronics. I don't have a crystal ball here that can predict any type of future. But
Mhm.
if we are going to have to survive tough times, then there's going to be an overall economy degrowth, in the sense that costs for us in terms of rental costs, which are some of our highest costs, are going to
Mhm.
drop a lot,
Right.
and revenue will drop accordingly as well, right? So I think for us, the way we have evaluated it is, if we were supposed to build 50 stores this year, we'll build 10 stores, or we'll build 15 stores, because conserving cash is important. But at the
Mhm.
same time, just waiting and watching how consumers are going to react to this, right? Really, nobody has any idea. In Wuhan, I believe that people are going back to the behavior that existed before, but that could be short-term behavior, right? Because
Yeah.
people have been down for so long. So we have to just wait and watch. I think I don't have a clear answer for that, but these are just some of our suggestions.
Got it. Got it. I think no, that's really interesting to know that most of us think that this is not temporary, although we might like it to be. There will be repercussions, and we'll start seeing it for quite a while. Mansi, the next question is for you. This from Vaishali. What do you think is the future of events and theater post the COVID-19 era? What would we expect? How different do you think it will be? Obviously, I mean, more online and having online also as an option will be one, but do you see anything else also changing once the lockdown is up for theater and live events?
So at least for a space like us, I mean, I'm talking about post the lockdown.
Yes,
At least for a space like us, uh, so there are big theater spaces which can accommodate up 100 people, 200 people, 300 people, and then there are experimental spaces like us, which is for a smaller audience. So 50 people, 100 people.
right,
Obviously, we will see a lot of changes in even in those number of people coming down. But having said, the option of trying out in these kind of spaces may be more, because the number of people who might be around you comparatively will be lesser than, let's say, a bigger space which takes up till 300 or 500 people, because that is definitely more risky. So for a
right.
space like us, I think, I mean, it's definitely going to be affected, yes. But having said that, the fact that we do more smaller intimate events, that might be a little helpful.
Got it. Got it. Absolutely. And to add to that, we already are seeing a lot of change happening when it comes to theater, specifically events. There's a lot more events that are happening online now. Suddenly, a lot of theater which was restricted to Broadway or physical spaces and were not accessible for people sitting in Bangalore, let's say, are now accessible. They are all online. Spaces are now looking at online. NCPA recently opened up, their YouTube channel and showcased a lot of amazing work of art, on their platform, and people could watch it for free, right? So I definitely see that spaces will become a more creative from a perspective of recording these events and live streaming them and broadcasting them, and we will have a lot more audiences accessing events globally.
Correct.
But yeah, we'll have to see over time how much feasible it is from a revenue standpoint as well, right? I think whether this will open up new revenue sources or people will still be used to the free norm or not, right? I think that's the change that we'll be looking towards. So great. We're definitely going quite over, but I think I'll just, if the audience is also fine and the panel is also fine, we'll take a couple of more minutes to make sure that we can close this off properly. So in case the audience still has any more questions, feel free to ask in the questions tab and I'll take it up. But from this panel discussion, if there's something that I want to make sure that all of us take away is that we cannot hold ourselves back. We need to open up ourselves to new challenges and new ways of experimentation. We definitely have to try out and give online a chance and be creative about it. We definitely have to see how we can lower our expenses and figure out short term cuts that would help the business survive and get past. Surprisingly or thankfully, none of the panelists have mentioned cutting jobs or removing people. And hopefully, we wouldn't run into that situation, anytime soon. With this, things will improve, and we will all have new products and new ways to offer. So I think this is a great time to upskill, to reskill, to experiment for all of us. And what I would like to, before we close the session, what I would like to go over is if each of you have to leave the audience with a thought or a message or an idea. Obviously, I mean, none of us are experts here of the situation. All of us are just trying things that we felt will work for our business or can work for our business. And we are all are experimenting and sharing it here. So even in the audience, if you are trying something and you want to share with the businesses, please feel free to use the chat window. But at the same time, if you want to leave all of us with a certain thought or a tip or something that we should read, something that we should consume, something that we will help us get through this time from a mental space and revenue and trust and marketing perspective, what would that be? I think we have already lost Pratibha, so we Pratibha is not here, but I would love to hear from the other panelists. So let's start with Mansi because you're already on the big screen. What would that be?
So these are tough times, and generally the oft-repeated statement is that tough times call for tough measures. But I think now is the time when you really need to be more sensitive more human and more community centric, in the sense that the community that you have, be available for them, reach out to them, understand their requirements, and
Mhm.
redefine your strategies accordingly. Nobody has planned for a pandemic, but how we come out of it totally depends on us. Personally, besides the business aspects, I'm also using this time to work on my health, both physical and mental, because when your business, like when the times were more hectic, that time I really didn't have the time to plan for my health in terms of exercise as well as food. But now is a time when you're actually planning it, and that also gives you a scope of a lot of other things in life, spending time with family and the employees that you have, over the phone, etc. So be there, be engaged, be healthy, and take this time as a time where you can learn a lot, and that is what is helping me,
Yeah.
and I'm sure practiced it'll help a lot of us.
Lovely, lovely. That's a great thought. Malini.
Yeah, yeah. Personally, for me, it is. This is the first time in these 7 years, probably, I have found space where I'm probably not thinking about F5 at some point of the day. So, and I don't have like almost a day of work. So this is the first time. So I'm trying not to fall into that pressure of peer pressure of productivity. That is something that is
Mhm.
absolutely detrimental to all of us, I believe. As founders, I think it's very, as founders and freelancers who run our businesses, as much as it is important to do the BCP, do the things, there has to be some portion of the day where you just be, like probably 1 or 2 hours in the day doing things that you always wanted to do. So that is something that I've been focusing on.
Awesome,
So, and
awesome.
that is what I would leave people with. Don't fall anybody, otherwise you're going to be in a very high pressure job, or you are running in, a company. This is probably the only time we'll ever get in our lives to focus a little bit, otherwise, on things that matter.
Hmm. Got it. Lovely. Sushant.
I think nothing new that has not already been said.
Hmm.
But I think for the first time in a lot of our lives, the world has literally stopped, right? And I think personally, that's given a lot of time for each of us to reflect and start looking at some of those personal goals. But from totally a business standpoint, because the discussion is really today around the business. I think figure out and do everything in your capacity to come out of this, right? Because
Hmm.
and it's not going to be easy. I mean, a lot of businesses are probably not going to survive this, right? And I think
Hmm.
at the end of the day, you have to have some type of goodwill with both the people you have worked with. I mean, these are some of your stakeholders, like your employees, your shareholders, your vendors. But also I think a big part of it is just try and be remembered by your customer, right? At the end of it, and I think we've spoken about many ideas that one could use to be remembered by your customer. But I think you're not going to get time again. But I mean, a big word of caution is that this is not a short term thing. This is a long term phenomenon. So be very prepared for that. If you're going to think that this is going to end in May and things are going to go back to normal, there's definitely going to be a new normal. So be keep your eyes wide open for that.
There's definitely going to be a new normal. I agree. Rajshekhar.
Okay. Very tough times for everyone, understand. And things have been really tricky and dicey. Never have never have we been into this kind of a situation where we were thrown up all into the air and we didn't know what to do. But then, when thought with human mind, we've always faced challenges. It's not something new, but this is something which came out of the moment and we were not prepared. So recalculating, getting proactive, keeping a close observation and watch, and with a moral conscience towards the community, as most of the other panel members said, you do good, good will come back to you. So it's not just on the business perspective that we need to look at it, but in the long term, with the time that we have gotten very proactive. We are finding out ways on how we can bounce back into the market.
Mhm.
And I myself have involved in a lot of things of exploring a lot of things which I never had earlier with my regular work schedule. But then I'm exploring a lot of things now, and I'm realizing that yes, there are solutions, there are ways out, but then we just need to focus and we need to make sure that we keep our minds open and we have the flexibility to adapt. I think if we have that, I think in the long run, we should be able to overcome whatever situation we are in. But then, as Sushant rightly said, this is not going to stop at May, it's not going to stop at June, this is not going to stop at July. It's a very long thing which we need to be prepared for. And I think as a community, cumulatively, we'll have to work towards it.
Got it. Got it. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think community, I love how the ideas are coming and nobody is talking about revenues, nobody's talking about money, nobody's talking about just making a load more and growing your business. Everybody's talking about mental health, staying positive, building community, thinking of customer first. I mean, and these are all of us
I'm sure the
are
guys at
smaller
Netflix
businesses
are.
and we are still.
I'm sure the guys at Netflix
Absolutely.
are. Don't worry about that. A lot of people are.
Absolutely, absolutely. I see Pratibha is back. So, Pratibha, just to repeat the wrapping up part and the last question as to what is that one thought or one idea that you would want to, or advice that you want to leave the audience with? Your video seems to be stuck. If you want to turn off your video, that's absolutely fine as well. It's working now. Sorry, go on.
Can you all hear me?
Not so well. Can you?
Am I audible?
Yes, now you are.
Yeah. Okay. So one thing that, as Sushant rightly mentioned, what I feel also this is here to stay. It's gonna take a little longer than we are anticipating. So what I feel is staying in touch and staying in, with communication with your people, with your students. I mean, in my case, it's my students is very very important. Keeping them engaged in various ways and letting them know that we are there no matter what, in whatever situation, is the key. So keeping in connection, staying connected with your audiences or your students is what is really needed and what is really required.
Awesome. Great. Staying in touch with our audiences is very important and making sure we are all positive. Great. I'm loving these messages. We are already over 30 minutes and almost nobody has dropped. I think that clearly shows that, everybody has been completely interested and intrigued by the conversation and we have been completely into this. Thank you so much, all the panelists who for taking this time out and being part of this. Before I close, I definitely wanted to check with the audience. This is the first event that we as 91 Growth created, and the whole idea was to get businesses to talk about their businesses and what they are doing because it's better to get people who are experimenting or doing the thing and learning from them than just getting a bunch of experts who will give out certain ideas without knowing whether something is working or not. Because, like we said right at the top, this is a situation that nobody has gone through ever. There is no history to look back and learn from. And like, not in a great way, but we are creating history right now for future generations to look back and talk about. So, in case you would like to be part of more such sessions and have us organize a few more such sessions in future, just give a thumbs up or mention that in the chat window. But otherwise, thank you so much, everyone, for the lovely evening. It was really great having all of you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank you so very
Piyush,
much.
Thank you.
for
Thank you
getting
so
us.
Thank you,
much.
Piyush. Thanks a lot. Thanks, guys. Nice
Thank
meeting
you.
you.
Yeah, we shall all overcome this together. Thank you.
This
Yes,
too shall
absolutely.
pass.
Yeah.